Good afternoon, everyone. How are we doing? Good? Bad? Cool. So, welcome. My name's James Tedrick. With me is Joel Whitney. And we're here to talk about inter-app communication with the ArcGIS apps. First off, I just want to ask, how many people are familiar with our apps? Collector, Survey123, Workforce, Explorer, lots of hands. Okay. So we may spend just a little bit of time going over that, but not too much. So we are going to talk a little bit about our field applications. You talk a little bit how they integrate together, and then go into how they're actually working together, and then go sort of app by app and show that how we can configure not only each application to open and do a specific action.
Just to jump in real quick, who is familiar with deep linking? Anyone heard of deep linking or app integration? It's called URL scheme. And okay,
so a few people, but not very many.
Okay, good.
Okay, so yeah, this should be a good introduction then. So, as you're probably aware, we have a suite of field apps to help you accomplish the full field operations workflow, from applying an operation, assigning people to it, getting them to their destination, being able to collect the data, and then also monitor the results as the operation is going on. So, as part of developing these apps, we've also designed them to integrate together. So, for example, Workforce is probably the most prominent example. It can open up a Navigator route. It can open up a Explorer map, or Survey123 form, or Collector web map for collection. As part of that, we configure these applications with basically to do a set task based on that information. So, and because we're using, and we'll dive into it a little bit more, we're using a sort of a universal application link scheme. We can actually also incorporate that from different apps. It doesn't need to be just from Workforce. You can create a link in Explorer that can open up the Navigator. You can create, even create an email with links that will open up Navigator and proceed through. Probably the most prominent way we see this app linking happen is in Workforce. As part of creating a Workforce project, we can create a navigation task. We can create an Explorer map, map observation, or collector collection, or Survey123 form task. This is all done through the UI of the Workforce webpage, where you are able to set in your app integrations by defining for a given task which application should open up, and as part of that, move the have data cross into that application to help begin and make that collection more efficient. So these apps all work through the same mechanism. As we said, there's an app link. Who here knows what a hyperlink is? Lots of hands, hopefully. That's HTTP, something, 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 open up the web page. App links work similarly, only instead of HTTP, which is open up the browser, there's another link that will open up another app. How many people have seen another application open up based on a link? Few people. How many people have seen an email get composed based on clicking a link? Pretty much everyone. So that's a form of an application link. Another version is telephone numbers. So we have a scheme TEL : that signifies open up my telephone with this number. And no, that's not Jack's actual number. Touch the crowd. So you click, so how the apps work together. Again, those URLs, the app links have two components. The first is the scheme component. That defines which application to open. When we open up a telephone, we use TEL. If we want to open up Explorer, we use ArcGIS-Explorer. If we want to open up Survey123, we use ArcGIS-Survey123. Right? It's very similar to the matter of just clicking the right icon on your screen. It's just that instead of it being a click on the screen, it's a setting in the link. The following part are a set of parameters, and these will vary from application to application. And you can have one or multiple parameters. If you don't have any parameters, it will simply open up the app. If you have depending on what type of parameters, you can open up certain forms or certain web maps and navigate to a location. So we're going to now dive in and take a look at all of these application schemes. The first one will be Survey123. As I mentioned, it begins with ArcGIS-Survey123. That will open up Survey123's application. Additionally, we can specify the form to open. That's that next item, the item ID. So we use the item ID and then the ID from our ArcGIS Online organization or ArcGIS Enterprise of the form item in that portal. We can then specify a sequence of field values to populate questions. Field, the name of the question in the form, and then what the value is equal to. So if I had a state field, I would have field, state, and then equals to, for instance, CA for California. We can chain those together, and you'll see this in all of them, using ampersands. We begin the parameter space with a question mark, and then use an ampersand to create that. The final parameter we support is the center parameter. This is the latitude and longitude you want the map of the survey to be assigned to. So when you open up the survey, you've already given it the location. Let's take a look at an example here. So this is actually a public form. You actually can use, if you've got an iOS device, you can actually scan the barcode, and that'll open up the application for you if you have Survey123 installed. If you have Android, you can get a QR reader application and do the same. And it breaks down to a few things. The first, again, is ArcGIS-Survey123 to open up Survey123. The next is the item ID. And again, that's the ID of our form item. We have a couple of parameters. The first is for the name. We're giving the parameter Alcatraz Visitor. It looks a little different below because I'm using URL encoding to replace the spaces with a happy character that can work in URLs. And then the description, thank you for opening this form. And then finally, I'm setting the center at a location that happens to correspond to Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay. The full URL is below. And again, you can see that we open it up with ArcGIS-Survey123, use a question mark to say, now here comes my parameters, and then separate each parameter with an ampersand to split them out. Do you want me to?
You want to show it?
Yep, so you can do a quick show. If we move over, we've got that here.
Just gotta go out a little bit to fit it in that box.
In the box. There we go. So this is a custom application Joel's written just to show how to parse this information. So you can see again the full URL, and then the parts, the scheme, the item ID, the field name, description, and center. And then if I pressed open, we'd open up, the survey's filled in with the information. I can go ahead and submit it. And then I'll just come back to the application for our next demonstration. So Joel?
Cool, thanks, son. And at the end of this slide deck, I'll have a list of all those document pages that kind of outline all the different parameters for all the apps. So you don't have to worry about snapping pictures right now if you don't want to. Okay, so the next application we'll talk about is Explore, and it's going to follow this like a similar pattern to what we just saw with Survey123. So first we have the app scheme at the top. That's ArcGIS-Explore. And we also have this web scheme. So you might be wondering what that web scheme is, and what that is, it's going to be something new coming to our apps in the next releases. This is actually a universal link. So for any of you that are out there using Android, I don't know, any Android users out there? Historically, there's been a lot of issues using app links. You're not really able to share them via text message or email. So this universal link will allow you to actually send someone a text message or an email using that HTTPS format URL, and they'll be able to tap on that to open the application. For developers, you can really use the app scheme within your application. If you're sharing like peer-to-peer or to other field workers, you might want to think about using the web scheme or the universal link in the upcoming release. As far as parameters go, we have a lot of parameters here for Explore. You have the item ID, which is the web map or the mobile map package that you're going to be opening when the app is launched. You have the center, which can be a number of things, such as a latitude, longitude. It can be an address that is going to be reverse geocoded, or it can even be a feature. So if your map is set up with layer search, you can actually specify like a hydrant ID or something like that to center the map. You also have the option to use a WKID parameter if you're going to be providing coordinates that are non-WGS84. You can provide the scale of the map that you want the map to zoom into. You can provide a rotation. You can also tell Explorer to enable markup mode. So if you're familiar with the Explorer app and you use markup mode, you can actually get your user into a state where the app launches into markup mode already. You can center the viewpoint of the map on a bookmark if that map has bookmarks, or you can even execute a search. So I'll show you a couple quick examples of that. First being the center on the feature, and then the next being how you can actually execute a search to maybe highlight a feature in your map to your user. Thank you. So if I scan that QR code, you see I have this URL that has a few different query items in it. It has the item ID of the map I'd like to open. It has the center, which is actually the ID of one of my hydrants I have in the map. And then it specifies the scale that I want the map to zoom into. So sure enough, Explorer opens the map I need the field worker to use, centers on that hydrant. Now this URL looks a little bit similar, except for instead of the center parameter, I'm actually going to pass the same hydrant ID to my search parameter. And when I open up that, you'll see that it actually executes a search within the application and highlights the hydrant for my field worker. Okay, so next we have Navigator. So Navigator, again, it's going to be using the same pattern. We have the app scheme that you can use in the release version of Navigator. We also have this new web scheme that's going to be coming with the 19.10 version of Navigator. You have a lot of different parameters you can use here. I don't want to spend all day reading all these off, so I'm going to kind of glaze through these. But basically, you have the option to do a couple things. You can pass a route to Navigator by providing a combination of a start location and any number of stops. So you can actually chain multiple stops together to form a route. You can provide a callback scheme, which we'll see a little bit later, which will actually open up any previous application that you want to open after the route completes. So if you have your own custom application, but you want to use Navigator for routing, you can actually use the URL to let Navigator do the turn-by-turn navigation, and then once the navigation completes, it will use the scheme provided in the callback parameter to open up any, maybe the app that called into it. You can let Navigator optimize the route for you by providing that optimized parameter. You can even specify travel modes if you have maybe some custom travel modes in your transportation network. And then a couple of new things that will be coming with the 19.10 release of Navigator is the ability to actually specify the mobile map package that you want your field worker to use. Previously, they would use whatever map they had open, but now you'll be able to tell Navigator which map you'd like the field worker to use. With that, we also have the concept of a route layer, which is now supported by the new version of Navigator. So for anyone creating routes using Network Analyst, you'll actually be able to save these to ArcGIS Online or Enterprise as a route layer, and then you can specify that in the URL of the Navigator. So we'll actually load that pre-planned route. So a couple quick demos. I'll show you one, how you can provide a list of stops to Navigator, and then also let Navigator optimize that for you. And then I'll show how you can actually load that route layer into Navigator. So this is a pretty big URL. You see I have quite a few parameters on there. So you have your scheme, you have the item ID for the map, you have a number of stops that I've provided with stop names. So if you don't want to present the coordinates to your field worker as the stop name, you can actually give it some meaningful name, such as a feature in your map. And I also pass in the optimize equals true. So this will tell Navigator, here's a list of stops, but I want you to find the best route for me. So it opens up Navigator and optimizes the route for you. And that's a bug in my custom app, so don't worry about that if you noticed it. So here's another one, and this is actually using that route item ID parameter that I just talked about. And when I go ahead and open that, it's going to look for that item ID on the ArcGIS online organization I'm signed into, and it'll actually load that route into Navigator. So this is a pre-planned route that someone in the back office has created for me. Okay, so next we have Collector. Again, in release version of Collector, we have the classic scheme that we've seen already, the ArcGIS-Collector. We'll also be having the new universal scheme in that app as well. So when the next version of Aurora comes out, you'll have that there. You can provide the item ID for the web map you want to use. You can use that center coordinates to drop a pin on the map, and this will kind of give the field worker an easy entry point to collecting a new feature. You can even pre-populate some of the attributes. So if you provide the feature source URL, as well as the feature attributes, which will be in the form of a JSON dictionary that will have to be % encoded, you can actually do that as well. So a quick demo just showing how you can drop that pin and set the location for the new feature, and then one showing how you can actually start pre-populating some of the attributes. So there's the URL as well as the query items you have attached to it. And when the map loads, it'll actually drop a pin at that location. And then, can't scan that apparently. And then another example where we're providing the center, but then we're also providing the feature source URL along with some attributes. So if I go ahead and open that, select that template, and then you'll see that meter number, which I provided in the feature attributes, is actually pre-populated for me. Okay, anyone out there using Workforce? Okay, a few of you. So for any of you who are using Workforce, or some of you that aren't familiar with it, when we talk about app integration with the Workforce application, what we're going to be talking about here is the configurations you can do on the back end to configure your project to have these integrations for your field workers. You have some default options that come with it, such as integrating with Collector, Explorer, Navigator, and Survey 123. So you can go ahead and when you create your project, you can actually go ahead and start to enable these integrations into your application. You also have the ability to add your own custom app. And it's not really obvious right now, but in the future release of Workforce, it'll actually be part of the UI that you're able to add your own custom integrations. To do so today, you have to use a tool such as AGO Assistant to kind of hack the JSON. So who has used AGO Assistant out there? Okay, it's a great tool, so definitely check it out if you haven't. But what you can do here is you can actually go ahead and grab that item ID for your Workforce project. You can then search that in the search bar. I don't know if you guys can really read that at all. But what you can do then is once you find your project, you can view the item JSON, and then you can actually go ahead and edit the JSON. And you can see at the bottom of the view there, I have my own custom integration. It says custom app integration, and then you provide a URL template that is going to go with that integration. So the next time you open up that workforce project, click the action on an assignment, you'll then have that custom integration presented to the field worker. So as developers, why is all this stuff important to you? And really the goal of this integration stuff is, we make our apps to be simple applications that perform, simple jobs very well. But you might want to integrate into your own custom workflows to, perform some more complex tasks. So there's numerous ways that you can integrate with our applications. You can directly link to field apps. So like you've seen here with the QR codes, you can embed a URL in a QR code. You can email or text someone a hyperlink. You can even host a web page that has hyperlinks on it. You can also do custom app integrations from our field apps. So like we saw with the workforce project, you can kind of modify your project to have custom integrations, but you can also link out from a pop-up. So we have a lot of organizations that are actually putting their own custom integrations in a custom attribute display in a feature pop-up, and then you're able to just tap on that hyperlink from the feature. You can even do field app integrations from your custom apps. So like we saw with my pretty poor QR code scanning application, you can actually integrate to our apps. So every time I scan that QR code, the button that was in that app was backed by the URL that was in the QR code. Another quick example of that, if I go out to another custom app I have made, here I have this application. It's pretty simple. Maybe it's hooked up to my organization's source of record, and it just has a list of things I have to go do in the day. So in this case, visit some parcels. I don't want to build out a robust application that has, all the mapping and routing components in it, but I want to use this because this is what my organization, maybe has been using for a long time and we're never going to get rid of it. So in this app, I've included some custom integrations. So if I tap on one of those parcels, I have a couple different options. One, I can get directions using Navigator. So using a similar pattern to what we saw earlier in the slides, I can just pass a URL to a single stop and get directions to that thing. Another thing you might want to do is view that feature. And this will give your field worker a little bit more context for what they're supposed to go do in the day, so they can actually view some attributes about that thing. And then they can actually go out and do their work. Okay, so that's pretty much it. That kind of just shows the full breadth of how you can use these integrations in various different ways and what types of parameters each application supports. Did you have anything you wanted to add on that?
Thank you very much. Just as a reminder, inside the Esri Events app is a little quick survey that we'd be happy for you to fill out if you liked us. If you don't, we are the mobile device management session that's at 3 o'clock. And I'm Derek Law.
Yeah, I'm Heather McCracken.
Happy to take any questions. The center has to be lat long is the question. In survey 123, it is restricted. In the other applications, because you have the WKID parameter, you can accept a non-decimal degree parameter.
In Explorer, it can also be an address that will be reverse geocoded by the locator or the org's geocoder, and it could also be a feature search result as well.
Where's the documentation for all of these? Glad you asked. So you'll see a couple of examples as well as the documentation. I'll just let everyone take a photograph.
The case studies that are at the top there are actually they're Navigator specific, but they're cases where the user was actually using the stop list and giving hyperlinks to their drivers to optimize their routes for the day. So I just threw that in there as a little bonus in case you feel like checking it out for some reason.
Sorry, can you repeat? When is the new web link?
Yeah, so the new web link, the universal links, will be rolled out with each update of their corresponding application. So, so which application are you concerned with or curious about? Survey 123.
So Survey 123, we don't yet have universal link support. You did see documentation for a web link that directs you to a landing page that can work with an Android to reopen the application in a native format.
So that's today, right?
That's today.
That's today.
That's out today.
The other apps will be, there's various time windows for each one, but we can go over that after if you'd like. Anything else?
No more questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you guys, appreciate it.